I see in the waiting room is one person. Anyway, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure for me to host you here today on behalf of CEEMAN and GMAC. I'm truly delighted to have this exclusive webinar with everyone today. I would like to first thank our esteemed partners, Graduate Management Admissions Council, GMAC team, for being great partners and for being with us today on this call. But before we proceed, I would like to say a few words about who we are. Just for those who don't know CEEMAN, we are the International Association for Management Development. We've been founded in 1993 with the mission to enhance the quality and impact of management education in Central and Eastern Europe. However, over the years, we have grown into a global network, and we're connecting management development institutions and experts from across the world, and we cover 180 members in about 50 countries today. We are very much dedicated to fostering excellence and innovation in education. And in addition to being a professional network and offering networking and professional development opportunities, we serve as an accrediting body, offering the international quality accreditation, IQA, that looks into the relevance, excellence, and dynamism. It's always a pleasure to gather with professionals and educators that have the shared goal of advancing the quality and the relevance of management education internationally. And today's topic is very much timed, and it is impactful. This GMAC's application trend survey provides us with a great snapshot of the evolving dynamics in graduate business education. And my colleagues from GMAC will be sharing more about it. But what we see from the CEEMAN standpoint is that it is very important to understand the shifts in application volumes and the program delivery methods, and of course to explore the growing role of technology and AI and the increasing diversity in the classrooms. So this report holds key insights, and it would definitely help us all in shaping the future of management education. We are very much excited because this report resonates well with our network and with this whole idea of kind of increasing importance of inclusion, of innovation and adaptability in learning environment. We would like to thank again the GMAC for the continued dedication to excellence and to transparency in data-driven insights. And I would like to thank all of the participants joining us today. I encourage you to participate actively, to ask questions. It is a wonderful opportunity to learn from each other and to reflect on how we collectively could move forward. I would like to give the floor now to Andrew and Katie, who will be giving the presentation today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you all. Thrilled to be here. My name is Andrew Walker. I serve as the Director of Industry Communications at GMAC. I'm the author of the Application Trends Survey Report and most of GMAC's research. I give presentations like these throughout the year and at our conferences and other industry conferences. So thank you very much to CEEMAN for having us. Katie Bao is also joining us. She serves as the Manager of Survey Research. She was the research lead on this report, so very much a team effort on the Application Trends Survey. Please ask questions as we go. Feel free to use the chat function. Katie will be monitoring that as I, sort of lead us through the presentation. There'll also be time at the end for questions that we'll be happy to chat through. So we'll talk, a little bit about GMAC, a little bit about GMAC research, a lot about our application trend survey, but including the benefits of participating in our application trend survey, especially as a group like CEEMAN, for results both at the regional level and then also at a consortium level. So just to give you a sense of what we'll chat about today, we'll start with a quick overview of GMAC research, some of the methods and ways that we understand our application trend survey, Then we'll dig into the data. Again, sort of giving you a sense of the types of questions that we are asking in the data that we are finding, both at a regional level and then some, or at a global level, and then some regional overviews. Then we'll explore one of our key themes in the report, which is the strength of the domestic pipeline that we've seen this year. So candidates applying within their own countries of citizenship, in their own countries of citizenship. Excuse me. It is still 8 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. And some of the more mixed results we saw related to international applications this year. We'll talk a little bit about inclusion in recruitment with a focus on women. Then we'll end with some exciting things we're seeing in business schools that they are considering in the age of AI, the age of upskilling, and some of the clearer returns on investments that candidates are really looking for as they consider graduate management education. And so again, my goal today really is to present the results of our 2024 survey to all of you, but not just for the sake of the information itself, but also so you can get a better understanding of the kind of analysis we do and some of the benefits of participating in the survey. So we'll start a little bit about GMAC and GMAC research. For those less familiar with the Graduate Management Admission Council, we are a mission-driven nonprofit association of leading business schools. We're perhaps most well known for the GMAT exam, and we are certainly proud to be the most widely used business school admissions exam in the world. But we also offer lots more than that. So we have other assessments in our portfolio of products, but lots of marketing and recruitment solutions along that whole candidate journey, all with the goal of helping business schools and prospective students discover and evaluate each other. And so key to that mission is GMAC research. We do certainly gain lots of insights about candidates from the GMAT exam, but we also run a series of surveys about candidates, their applications, and their future employers. So today, we're here to talk about the application trend survey, which I'll introduce in a bit more detail in just a moment. But I do want to highlight some of the other surveys that we run annually. So we have our GMAC Prospective Student Survey, which is actually coming out in about 2 weeks. And that's where we are talking directly with candidates about what they are looking for from business school. So it really complements our application trend survey because we're talking to folks 1 year, 2 years out from even applying so that you can really apply those lessons learned to your marketing, admissions, recruitment practices. We also talk to employers through our corporate recruiter survey. We're talking about the skills that they want students to learn in business school, what makes them most hireable, as well as some of the hiring and salary trends that they saw in the past year and the upcoming year that they are predicting. We also have our enrolled student survey, which we run about every 3 years now, but that's where we're talking directly with students and recent alumni about their GME experience. Again, all with the intention of giving schools like you the information that you need to improve your marketing, admissions, recruitment solutions, the way that you're engaging with students, and really ensuring that we are all sort of committed to that return on investment of graduate management education. And we don't just write long form reports, although we certainly do. We also write, shorter form things like blogs, infographics. We write white papers about relevant topics. We do webinars like these, really all with the goal of getting that information into your hands. So a bit about the application trend survey specifically, just to give you a sense of the methods behind the reporting. So the survey itself was in the field, collecting responses from June to August of 2024, representing data about the 2024 to 2025 incoming class. So we received results from nearly 1,100 programs at almost 300 business schools in 40 countries. And we were able to dig in on particular degrees or regions as a result of higher sample sizes. And so that's one of the benefits of participating, not just your school, but encouraging your peer schools to participate as well. Because you can see in our results, in the United States, for example, we don't just report, we can report at the MBA level, the full-time 1-year MBA level, the Master of Finance level, all within a particular region. And so that really I think it's always useful to have that global picture, but then sometimes that's not always the best benchmark. And so that's really a great opportunity there. And like I mentioned, we don't just release those long-form reports. We have lots of other ways of getting the information out there. So we always do a dean summary, which provides the highlights of the report tailored for a leadership audience. We sometimes hear that folks use the dean summary themselves as they're prepping to share just the results with their deans. Our infographic this year focused on a really great year of MBA growth, which we'll talk about in more detail coming up. And then a big benefit to schools is our regional reports, which offer tailored insights into particular regions and degrees, like I was just mentioning. These reports are always available at the end of the report and on the application trends survey landing page, which is just gmac.com/application trends. And we also have regional pages of gmac.com, which can be accessed from our market intelligence menu or with regional links like gmac.com/Europe, for example. Another great benefit for those who participate in the application trend survey is access to this revamped interactive dashboard that lets you filter results and automatically generate visualizations of the data on your own. And I'm actually going to invite Katie to speak a little bit more about our interactive dashboard and about our benchmark reports.
Thanks, Andrew. So I think these interactive dashboards are one of the biggest benefits of participation because only participants will gain access to these dashboards. And so we have two sets of dashboards. The first is the summary dashboard, which summarizes the results of everyone who participated in the survey. And with this dashboard, you can also then filter into, if you're interested in, say, Masters in Management programs or European programs or online programs, you can slice and dice the data however you want for pretty much everything that we look at in the survey. So when you click in, you'll see all the topics in purple along the top. And then within each topic, we have a number of subtopics you can dive into. So for example, if you're interested in the candidates, you can look at their academic profile. That's what's shown here. This is comparing the candidates who applied this year to last year's candidates. Are they about the same? It looks like most people are saying yes, or more qualified, less qualified. And you can see there's a number of other topics just within candidate demographics. So for each of those topics along the top, there's a number of subtopics. And then along the right, you can see all the filters. So you can filter into European business master's programs, for example. So this gives you a good sense of overall what are the results for pretty much every variable that's in the survey. And then we have a second set of dashboards, which we call our benchmark dashboards. And those you'll receive one for every single program that you submit. So if you submit 10 programs, you'll get 10 dashboards, 10 benchmark dashboards. And those are really useful for diving into your specific peer programs. So we show you a list of every single program that participated in the survey, and you can select who you want to compare yourself to. So you have to select at least 5 so that we sort of protect the privacy of your data. But you can select at least 5 of your competitors. It could be more. And then we show you the same results that you see here for the summary dashboard, but we show your results and then an aggregation of your peers' results. So you can see, okay, maybe I said the academic profile of my class was about the same, while of my peer programs, maybe 5% said they were about the same, but a whole lot more said they were better this year, or something like that. So you can get a sense of how do I compare to these specific peers. And you can select different sets of peers to compare yourself to. So I think that's really helpful for diving into what programs are most like you to see, are my results in regards of applications similar to those peers?
Thank you, Katie. Great. So with that, let's dig into some of the results. So we have 2 different ways of measuring year-to-year application change. So on the left, we describe what we call relative change. So these are just how many programs said their applications went up, how many said they went down, how many said they stayed the same. And this uses all of the survey responses that we receive in a particular year. Then on the right, we describe what we call the absolute change. So this is the change in the total number of applications across the industry. But we only look at schools who submitted responses both in this year and the year prior to control for lots of different variables to make that apples to apple comparison. So both sets of results are weighted by regional distribution of programs that are accredited by AACSB, EFMD, and AMBA. And then the change within regions or countries are not weighted. So last methodological programming note, before I can tell you that what we saw in 2024 was that applications were up across the industry. So on the left, you can see that more than half of programs reported increases in applications after 3 years where most programs were reporting declines. And it was the second largest share of programs reporting growth in the past 10 years, that 56% of programs. Then on the right, you can see the magnitude of the total applications jumped quite a bit, even compared to peaks that we saw when more folks were applying to schools at the onset of the pandemic in 2020. So 12% growth applications across the industry. Of course, up, down, flat are relatively rudimentary measures. So we do dig deeper into exactly how much applications increased. And so this darker purple on the bottom means that applications increased significantly, 21% or more, which means that a quarter of programs reported significant growth in 2024. So what's driving this application growth? We can start by looking at degree programs. And the thing that sticks out to me is the growth reported by full-time 2-year MBAs, for sure, and then also programs with a longer history in graduate management education, like a Master of Accounting or like a Master of Management. And that's what's highlighted in this little box here. We see that online and flex MBA programs also were more likely to report growth in their applications. We'll talk a bit more about this in a moment. Programs that were most likely to report declines were part-time and executive MBAs, Master of Marketing, and Master of Business Analytics programs. So that was what we call the relative results. When we look at the total application, so these blue numbers here, that's where we still see a lot of growth in full-time 2-year MBA, Master of Accounting, and online MBA programs. So again, those are the ones that are called out here. We also see positive total application growth among part-time and executive MBAs, even though individual programs are more likely to report declines overall, which just means that this 11 and 12% growth here is concentrated in that smaller 46% and 43% of programs actually reporting growth. And those are the numbers in the purple. The last thing I want to point out here is the variance we see in business master's programs. So there's a lot of relative and absolute growth among accounting programs on the left here. So a lot of programs reporting growth in both the total number of applications to these programs, but more mixed results with the Master of Finance and a bit of a less positive story in business analytics. So we have a couple of ideas as to why this might be happening. So we know from our research that we did about Gen Z candidates a couple years ago that they tend to be more interested in finance and accounting careers than millennials, which could partially explain this jump in Master of Accounting interest. We also know that Master of Finance programs tend to be a bit more reliant on candidates from China, and business analytics also are heavily reliant on international talent. So I'll explain a bit more about that in a moment, but overall domestic applications were stronger than international applications this year, so that's why that might have adversely affected these finance and business analytics programs. Last thing I'll mention here is methodological. You might notice that we don't have the absolute blue numbers for every program, and it's because we have to limit the sample to those who submitted applications last year in addition to this year so that we can generate the total application change while also controlling for change in the sample. So in these cases, we just didn't have enough data in both years to run that absolute analysis. So we also looked at results by region. This is a place where we could look at results by Eastern Europe as well if we had a sufficient enough sample size. But I'll give you the results that we were able to analyze in 2024. So in each box, the first 2 figures are relative growth and relative decline in applications. And the third figure is the total change in applications. So to start, most programs in the United States, Europe excluding the UK, which we separated out, and Asia, where we also separated out India and China, they experienced application growth, while programs in Canada and the United Kingdom saw declines in total applications. Europe in particular had strong absolute or total application growth, which contrasted quite a bit with the United Kingdom this year. And the reason behind this has to do a lot, again, with the trends that we're seeing in domestic and international distribution of their applicants, which brings us to the next section. Which really does focus on the state of the domestic pipeline, so candidates who are applying to programs within their country of citizenship, as well as the trends we're seeing in international mobility, so candidates who are applying to programs outside of their country of citizenship. So I mentioned this earlier, but we just saw a particularly strong year of domestic growth among most MBA programs. And so most of these MBA programs here experienced domestic application growth, with the exception of the executive MBA. But for MBAs, it was just, a really strong year overall. And most of these MBA program types also experienced international growth. And all of them had total applications increase among both domestic and international candidates. Again, those are those blue numbers across the top, which you do see plus signs in front of all of them. That means applications went up both at the domestic and international applicants. So the full-time 2-year MBA had especially large increases, along with the online MBA towards the right of the slide here. Then if you look at the executive MBA, there was 25% growth in international applications, but it was all concentrated in that 40% of executive MBA programs that reported application growth. So this is why it's helpful to look at both of those versions. Sure, there can be lots of applications going to these programs overall, but what we're seeing is in some cases, like the executive MBA, even though the total applications across all of those programs increased, it was really concentrated among a much smaller group, rather than in some of these other MBA programs where it was a much more spread out way that the applications were increasing. We looked at business master's programs as well, of course, where we again see that strong domestic growth here in the blue. And again, this is looking just at the business master's programs where we had enough data in 2023 and 2024 to run this absolute analysis. And so I alluded to this earlier, but I think what we see with business master's degrees this year is an underlying reliance on international talent. So if you look at the Master of Business Analytics, for example, there was a 23% year-to-year increase in domestic applications to these programs. Yet just a 6% drop in international applications meant that these programs still in total dropped 5%. So this just means there's typically way more international applications to business analytics programs compared to domestic applications. And just again, a quick methodological programming note here. The purple columns are not an average of the domestic and international change. Each column represents the year-to-year change of each category. So final thoughts here. You see a similar trend in the Master of Finance and really just business master's programs overall when you look at it as a category to the left. And what we're seeing is that small changes in international applications affect the totals way more than any big changes in domestic applications. And final thought here just bears repeating that this was just a really strong year of growth for Master of Accounting programs. Regionally, we see similar patterns to those I mentioned earlier, to where applications are up or down, as well as a continuation of this theme of strong domestic growth, again, with the exception of the United Kingdom here. You see positive results for every other region in the blue there. But also worth noting that we had to combine regions in Asia to get a sufficient sample size to run that absolute analysis, but there is actually a lot of variation within the region. In particular, India had a really high domestic growth, which was a trend we started to pick up on earlier last year, and that we're still seeing in our prospective student survey, where there are more Indian candidates who are wanting to study domestically. So certainly something to keep an eye on for programs, international programs that are reliant on a pipeline of talent from India. Then there was strong international application growth in Asia, separate from India and China. So I mentioned earlier we had a really good size sample in the United States, and so that's why we were able to run additional analysis on individual programs within the U.S. So this is just to give you a sense of what we're seeing in the U.S., but also to give you a sense of what we can do with more regional data when we have it. So we see that, like global MBAs, all of these MBA programs had strong domestic growth this year. And most full-time MBA programs in the US also saw international applications increase, whereas international applications to more flexible and executive options did not grow as much. With US business master's programs, we still see that strong growth for Master of Accounting programs among both domestic and international candidates. with the US Master of Finance and US Master of Business Analytics still seeing strong domestic growth, but again, lacking in the international applications that these programs typically rely on. So yes, strong year of domestic applications, but that doesn't mean there's not still a lot of mobility across the industry. So where is international talent interested in studying these regions coming from? So in the survey, we ask a question: from which 3 countries has your program received the greatest number of international applications? So what you see on the screen here, you would interpret this as 34% of programs in the United States say that most of their international applications came from India. 17% said most of their international applications came from China, and 12% from Nigeria. And so I don't think it's surprising to anyone to see that India and China are main sources of international talent in most regions. But there were still some year-over-year changes. So in Canada, where we saw that big drop in international applications, we also saw a big drop in programs saying their top source of talent was from India. So last year, 42% of Canadian programs said most of their international students came from India, and now that's just 15%. And so, we know the 2 countries have had challenges with their political relations, and Canada has also capped international study visas and are getting even tougher for this upcoming application year. The UK also had a big drop in the share of programs that said India was their top source of international talent, which then raised the profile of Chinese students coming into the country. The UK also had some visa changes last year. They restricted visas for the families of international students, which could have also deterred international talent. I'll also add that Nigeria still continues to be a top source of international talent for programs in the United States and Canada, with Ghana also cited as a common source of international talent to programs in North America. And so I think as we are thinking about fewer Indian students going to places that they had typically gone to in the past, we know that some of them are more interested in staying in India, but then also they may be more open to other places as they are deterred by visa challenges in the United Kingdom and Canada. In Australia, there's a lot of visa challenges, and then obviously we don't know necessarily what's going to happen in the United States yet. So as all of these things are sort of happening at the same time, I think we really could be seeing a realignment of where international talent is going. It's certainly something to keep an eye on in the data that we're seeing here, the data we'll see in our upcoming surveys. So definitely some clear trends coming out of our analysis of domestic talent and the mobility of international students. I want to transition to other ways that we often get diversity of identity or experience into the classroom beyond the unique perspectives that international students bring, and we'll bring a particular focus on women. We did see some positive growth among applications from women to graduate management education programs this year, with 55% of programs reporting growth. That's the second largest share since the pandemic-related boom, that little peak you see in 2020. But that said, the median share of female applications, this dotted line going across that looks relatively horizontal, it really hasn't moved much year to year, and really not in the past decade or so. It's really hovered around that, 41, 42%. So generally, women make up larger shares of applications to business master's programs compared to MBA programs. So we'll focus on that for a little bit. So looking all the way to the left, we can see that nearly as many business master's programs reported increasing applications from women as declining applications in 2024, though of course this depends on the program, which you see in the rest of the figure. So with Master of Accounting, for example, 2/3 of programs reported growth in applications from women. However, more than half of finance, business analytics, and marketing programs reported declining applications from women. But in addition to looking at these year-to-year changes, it's helpful to look at how many women are in the applicant pools of these different programs. So for example, all the way on the right, if we look at the Master of Marketing, more than half of programs reported declining applications from women in the red there, but women still made up 66% of the total applicant pool to Master of Marketing programs. So again, I know we focus on business master's programs in these past 2 slides, but we saw earlier that it was a strong year of growth in applications to MBA programs, and that was true among women as well. So essentially, the phenomenon that we're seeing is that business master's programs were more likely to report declining applications from women, but despite this, women still made up larger shares of the total applicant pool. And then the opposite was essentially true of MBA programs. MBA programs were more likely to report increasing applications from women, but despite this, women were still relatively underrepresented in their total applicant pools. Last thing I'll mention here, many business school programs do special recruiting events for different types of applicants to build some diversity of perspectives in their classrooms. The most common type of special recruitment efforts, so this could be things like events or fairs or travel or marketing, is to international students, followed by women, and then undergraduates who are enrolled in their business school. And that really hasn't changed in the past decade or so, the shares that are doing these types of special recruitment events. So with that, I'll transition to our last section with some other exciting, more programmatic information about the programs that have responded to the survey, like AI, like non-degree offerings, and financial aid. So just to take a step back about AI real quick, here's what we're seeing across our surveys and this AI case study series that we did where we were talking to individual programs about how they've implemented AI into their classrooms and administrative processes. And you can access this at gmac.com/AI if you want to learn more about any of this. But basically, candidates are saying AI is increasingly important for them to learn in business school. 29% of candidates said it was essential to their GME curriculum in 2022. That was up to 40% in 2024, and now it's 46% in 2025. So certainly increasing interest of candidates in learning about AI in business school. Employers think that we have a bit more time. Just 26% said it's currently important for graduate management education students coming into work for their organizations. But when you ask employers how important will AI be in 5 years from now, that's when it jumps on this list of skills that we give them to be actually number 4 on the list. And that's behind things like problem solving, strategic thinking, and more broad technology skills. And so business schools are beginning to respond to these market demands. 78% say that they have integrated it into their curriculum in some way, though few have formal admissions policies or practices around AI when it comes to actual admissions. And so from programs integrating AI into the classroom, most are doing it around topics like business ethics, decision-making, practical applications or simulations, or business strategy. There's a bit less focus on prompt writing, and certainly less focus as a mechanism for personalized learning paths. And I'll just say we're nearing publication of our GMAC Perspective Student Survey. This is very much aligned with what candidates are actually interested in as well. There's less of this interest in prompt writing or even these personalized learning journeys, a lot more interest in candidates wanting to learn about how to use AI in decision-making or in a really practical, hands-on way. We also asked about non-degree programs this year, and we found that 62% of graduate management education programs offer some type of micro-credential, non-degree credit, exec ed, stackable certificates, or seasonal programs. These non-degree offerings tend to be most common in Canada and Europe, as well as among public institutions over private nonprofit business schools. The other thing that I'll mention here from another piece of our research around it was from our segmentation study, which talked to 10,000 candidates across 21 different countries. But we asked them, what are you interested in learning about, and from whom? And so I think one of the most interesting things I saw in that data set around these non-degree credentials was that university providers are much more trusted to provide this type of credentialing compared to these other private companies that have gotten into the that ed tech type of space. So I really do think there is lots of opportunity for business schools to be engaging in this type of stuff and really leveraging their current brand equity that they have and the trust that they have with students to be able to deliver some of these types of programs. Then finally, last topic of the day before I close this out and open up to any other questions is on financial assistance. So Cost is obviously a big factor in candidates' decisions to pursue business school or not. It's cited as the #1 barrier among all GME candidates, regardless of their geography or gender or generation or other factors. It's also the most common way that candidates say they are planning to finance their degree. The average candidate says they plan to cover about 1/3 of their cost of attendance with financial aid. So that makes up the largest planned source of financing. Loans, just to give you a good sense, are the second most common way that candidates plan to finance their degree, which they intend to cover about 20% of the cost there. And so that brings me to the graph itself, which tells us that business schools are keeping up with candidates' concern of around financial aid, because they have steadily been increasing the shares of incoming students receiving some form of financial aid, particularly with growing merit-based aid and fellowships. So with that, I'll close us out with a couple of quick reminders. We did see strong overall growth, which was driven by strong domestic growth, candidates applying to programs in their country of citizenship, and sort of this renewed interest in more quote unquote traditional GME programs like the full-time MBA and the Master of Accounting and the Master in Management. There was some positive overall sentiment for applications from women, especially among MBA programs, while business master's programs still have typically larger shares of women applying. When it comes to AI, certainly already being integrated into the classroom, really along dimensions that candidates are most interested in, and on a timeline that I think will satisfy employers. So a lot of really good news about how business schools are approaching AI there. And business schools are meeting candidates' cost concerns by providing more folks with financial aid. So with that, I am happy to take any questions, both about the data that I shared, as well as how this could be applied to CEEMAN or to other schools in Eastern Europe, or any other questions that might come to mind about GMAC.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That was very important for everyone to hear, and I see great opportunities for the schools. I know we tried to pilot it last year with Katie and other colleagues, and there was some feedback from CEEMAN member schools, and but we haven't put so much effort like this time doing the full presentation that is available to the network. So I really hope that the schools could consider participating, because that kind of gives them a lot of information to work with, and it's already a job done for them, let's say,
Exactly.
by your team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have some attendance. So let's see if there are any questions. In the meantime, maybe we could inform about the timeline. So when the school participates, how long it takes for you to analyze the information and kind of provide the feedback. That would be interesting to know.
Sure, I can speak to that. So this year we'll be opening the survey up in mid June, and we'll close it in mid-August. So you have 2 months worth of time to choose when to participate. And then usually we analyze the data in about 2 weeks, but then it takes another month or so to write the report. And we end up releasing it. I don't know if we have an exact date yet, but in October. Sometime in probably mid-October, late October. And then we release a webinar and the dashboards then in early November.
Yeah, and those dashboards you consistently have access to. So you'll get a unique link for your programs or business schools, Katie?
Programs.
Programs, okay. And so we've talked to schools. They're like, this information is normally more useful to us like in May as we're, making plans for the upcoming year. And so you still have access to it as you need it.
I think people are processing
Yes,
the
I
information
did, I
that you
did
have
move
shared. It
relatively
takes time
quickly.
because a
Yeah,
lot of a lot of graphs and
a lot of graphs.
statistics.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I'll say too, we're always happy to talk with schools about the results. You can email me at awalker@gmac.com. Feel free to share that out with folks. Research@gmac.com is also a good way to get in touch with our research team for any questions or how folks can use the data. Definitely reach out to our great account manager. Sara Serafino is in the Eastern Europe region. Really great resource from GMAC, both about, I mean, she could talk to anything that GMAC does. And
Right.
yeah.
I have a question
Sure.
on behalf of the whole network.
Right.
Let's say our schools decide to kind of participate, and we've been discussing with Katie earlier and some other colleagues at GMAC. If we get a substantial amount of members participating, then it could be kind of a separate report produced for the CEEMAN. And what do you think would be the good number to have some data that is kind of credible enough to analyze?
Yeah, usually we use a cutoff of about 30. So if we get 30 programs, and that's programs, not schools, participating,
programs.
then we'll provide a dashboard that's just CEEMAN schools, as well as a report where we kind of walk you through all of the results for just those CEEMAN schools.
Yeah, that's great because I mean, most of our schools come from emerging markets, let's say, and from very interesting environments, let's say, and some of them are very turbulent at times. So I think it would be really interesting to have like a very like a snapshot of that specific region. Yeah. Well, in any case, I think what we're gonna do, we're gonna save this webinar, publish it on the CEEMAN YouTube channel for people to revisit. If you could maybe share a couple of links that might be also useful for them to explore on top of the webinar, that would be great. So we can just add them to the description of the webinar. And so that people can revisit that at their own hours and then maybe have the follow-up questions that they could send to us or to you directly. I think that would be the best way to take it.
Sounds great to us. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember on your website you had like some infographics, and I think these are also very important to review. And I wonder, Andrew, if you're happy to share the presentation with the network, or is it just the video that is enough?
Oh, yes, we can share the presentation. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I do appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think it was very fruitful and important for everyone to know, and for us now to have it on record.
Yes,
So
of
a
course.
wider group of people could access it. We'll be circulating our newsletter, and we could also
Great.
add the link there.
Great.
So that it definitely reaches to every single member of CEEMAN. Thank you so much, both of you, for being great partners and for sharing this information.
Thanks for the
course.
opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Wish you a lovely day.
You
You
too.
too.